She was in her mid 60s, and all of the headlines, she became kind of famous for it, and all the headlines were, like grandma knows about murder, like, grandma's a sleuth.
From northern New York, western Vermont, Ontario, Quebec, and beyond, this is Northwards from North Country Public Radio. Introducing you to people you should know, stories you should hear, and ideas that should stick in your mind. I'm Mitch Tyke, and our producer is Ethan Shanty.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Community Foundation in support of the Adirondack Community Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
That's my level. There we go. It was actually a game show that took place at a hardware store.
And it was hosted by Soupy Sales.
Yeah, exactly.
The weird thing is I think about the name Soupy Sales all of the time.
It's a great name.
It has staying power, obviously. I don't remember the last time I watched Game Show Network, which I used to watch all the time. Did you?
I never did, and I don't know why. I would think I would enjoy Game Show Network.
When my family got DirecTV, we suddenly had access. We went from having an antenna that gave us access to like 5 channels to having DirecTV, which gave us access to like 1,000 channels. And so I would go through.
You guys got Game Show Network 2. I'm sure.
The stuff they can't show you in America. Right. So I would go through like these obsessive periods where I was watching only Game Show Network. And then there was a period where my family was only watching Food Network. And then I was only watching the Nick at Night channel, which was all, just old sitcoms and stuff.
Right. How is Benson doing?
I never watched Benson.
No?
No. What's Benson?
Benson. Oh, this was a series from the late 70s, early 80s, starring Robert Guillaume as when the series started, he was the this is a show that wouldn't be on now. He was the African American butler in the governor's office, but he was of course wiser than all the other people around him. So he was the person that the white old man governor would call on for sound advice, whether it was about policy or it was about the governor raising his teenage daughter as a single dad. And then there was also the German housekeeper who was played by somebody who I believe was Swedish.
I'm willing to bet that viewing that program, Benson, through today's standards, there were some problematic storylines.
Icky, very icky. Benson ended up becoming the governor's chief of staff, and then at some point and the show was probably on for like 4 seasons, but it seemed like forever when I was a kid.
Right.
They ran against each other. They had a falling out, and they ran against each other for governor. But then they made up on election night, and in the big cliffhanger, we never find out who wins the election.
That's when the series ended?
I think. It was certainly a cliffhanger ending because I don't remember watching it after that.
I'm sure that some devoted fan has picked it up and written a very long fan fiction novel about it at the end.
So you got Game Show Network in addition to the many, many other channels.
Yep. And I think a lot about Soupy Sales, Chuck Woolery. And I remember...
Wink Martindale?
Wink Martindale, yes. I remember thinking, geez, these shows look like garbage.
Well, they all had a budget of like $400.
Well, no, but I also mean like the actual like the shows just look pixelated and smoky.
Oh, yeah. They probably were smoky.
They were definitely smoky, yeah, because... Today's program brought to you by Lucky Strike. Each contestant will walk away with a carton of Lucky Strike cigarettes.
ABC, always by Chesterfield.
The low tar alternative. Okay, so I know that the guest on your program today is a person who has dabbled in true crime. And when you told me
she herself, not a criminal.
Not a criminal, but the name of an article that she wrote was called... What was it called?
It was called, Have You Ever Thought About Killing Someone?
Mm-hmm. And I've not, for legal purposes. But it made me think of this. You didn't watch Family Guy when you were...
Not religiously, no.
Okay. So I'm typing into YouTube, Family Guy, Klondike Bar. And I'm going to show you this clip. And you're going to...
I think it goes a little like this. But you'll probably have to turn off our microphones.
I am.
Otherwise, I will not hear it.
You'll not hear it.
What would you do for a Klondike bar? Would you stand on one leg? Sure. Would you act like a monkey? Uh-huh. Would you kill a man? Well...
So
Nice.
it's not often that we get to reference Family Guy on this program.
Only
but
when we're eating Cool Whip.
Cool Whip. Why are you saying that way? Why am I saying what way? So you are speaking with a true crime podcast host today.
Yes. Well, she's done a number of things.
Yeah.
Her name is Rachel Monroe. She is a writer for The New Yorker. She has written many articles and did host a podcast called Lost at Sea, which she did for the BBC, which I think falls under the category of true crime.
Mm-hmm.
She's now the co-host of a podcast called Bad Therapist, which is not a true crime podcast, but it is about charlatans and mucky muck in the world of therapy.
So is that why you two got connected? Was because of this show?
No, we got connected because she is, in fact, a longtime Adirondacks goer. Her parents have been connected to the Adirondacks for years. She has been coming to the Adirondacks for years. You'll hear in the interview she has climbed Blue Mountain every year for many years running.
Oh, fun.
Loves this place, and she is, as we're having this conversation, doing a talk about a famous forensic scientist. Actually, I guess the woman wasn't a scientist herself, but she was a pioneer in the world of forensic medicine. And forensic medicine is, of course, investigating crime scenes and how people died.
So is her family getting residual checks from CSI and all of the other TNT true crime programs?
They should. This is a woman who lived in the 30s. Well, who was a real pioneer in the 30s and 40s, and you'll hear all about her. Her name was Frances Glessner Lee, and the story of Frances Glessner Lee, who built these intricate models of crime scenes to train forensic scientists. Her story is captured in a book that Rachel Monroe wrote that came out some years ago, 2020, I think. So the lecture in Blue Mountain Lake is about Frances Glessner Lee, but there's so much more to Rachel Monroe. It was really amazing to get a chance to talk to her, and we are thrilled to have her join us on the line from Texas. Rachel Monroe, welcome to Northwards.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Speaking of someone who has been in this field for a good 35 years, I think I speak for a lot of us when I say you seem to lead a pretty interesting life in journalism.
I'm glad that it appears that way on the outside. I'm maintaining the illusion, at least. But thank you.
Well, yeah, to go down the Rachel Monroe rabbit hole seems pretty interesting. And the problem I had with getting ready for this interview was I would start to listen to, say, one of your podcast episodes, and suddenly a half hour would go by, and I hadn't gotten any closer to coming up with a narrative arc for telling your story. But maybe that's where we could start. Is there a through line that connects the kind of subjects that interest you?
Oh my gosh. It's like when you start out as a journalist, some advice that you get is to like develop a beat and you focus in on, climate or health or sports. And I've done the exact opposite of that. I think the only through line is like what is interesting to me. And unfortunately or fortunately, I have like a pretty capacious capacity to be curious. So run the gamut from, the lottery to sperm donation to various murders. So that's a pretty wide range. But it's, as long as it keeps me feeling engaged and keeps me wanting to, bother it's one of those things, if I'm excited enough about something that if I like meet a stranger on the airplane or in the bar or something, and I'm like, you won't believe what I'm working on, then that's usually a good subject for me.
Well, and you said, when you go into journalism, they say you should develop a beat. You didn't really like go to traditional journalism school or even plan on becoming a journalist, right? Yeah,
that's true. I mean, I've always been a reader and a writer. I've always kind of known that would be a part of my life forever. I don't really have any other skills. So So that's been useful. I went to school for writing fiction. I got an MFA and then kind of fell sideways into journalism. Just one of those stories where I honestly found real people stranger and more interesting and more compelling than anything I could come up with. And I like asking nosy questions. I like having a job where I can really, ask the question that if you were being polite, you probably wouldn't ask.
Well, if you were being polite, or I mean, I was thinking about this because as somebody who's done radio for as long as I have, I feel like the microphone or the notebook or whatever is a great icebreaker and allows you to have conversations with people that you really never would have otherwise.
Completely. And just like entrance into spaces that, there's really no reason for you to be in. I just did a piece for the New Yorker. It won't be out by the time this is out, but where I was traveling around to North Dakota for North and South Dakota to do a like America 250 story, and found myself on this amazing native reservation for their annual powwow, which has been held for more than 170 years, and I just felt so fortunate to be there. Just an excuse to kind of witness interesting, fascinating things that happen throughout the world that otherwise I wouldn't get to do.
Why do you think people talk to you?
Well, sometimes they don't, but I do think that my curiosity is really genuine, and I have a real love of people. It's kind of annoying to go to the grocery store with me or something because I'm like the person who's always like having trying to have a conversation with the cashier or something. But I find people really endlessly fascinating. I do think everybody has a story, and I like hearing them, and I think people respond when you are genuinely engaged.
Yeah. The kind of reporting you do along with the podcast, these are labor-intensive projects you work on, and maybe this is the dullest question ever, but do you have some giant whiteboard at home that lets you keep track of everything you're pursuing?
I wish that would probably be a beneficial addition to my life. I would be a little bit more organized if I did that. No, I just have these like never ending to-do lists that if I scroll way back, I'm like, oh yeah, I was going to look into that 3 years ago or something. But no, I just write endless to-do lists and then forget half of the things on them.
But these are not the kinds of stories that lend themselves to, you're only working on this particular thing because it would take you, 3, 4, 5 months per assignment, I assume.
Yeah, it is an interesting way to lead life and to kind of work because I am working on multiple things at once and sort of have these layers of interests, where I'm learning about the history of this reservation at the same time I'm learning about the history of perfume in Pompeii at the same time I'm learning about smokable hemp and THC laws. So like very kind of random, but they always end up intersecting in strange, surprising ways. I like finding those points of overlap too.
Yeah. There's a profile of you from a few years back in Columbia Journalism Review, or I guess CJR as the kids call it. If the kids read Columbia Journalism Review. But it pointed out how ahead of the zeitgeist you have often been when it comes to the subjects you write about, van life or essential oils or whatever, mysterious deaths at sea. I was thinking back about at the times when I was reporting years ago, and I would try to convince an editor to be interested in something that they had not heard of before. And it wasn't easy. I think there is sometimes a timidity when it comes to a publication or an outlet wanting to be ahead of the curve. How do you get through that issue?
Well, I think, at a certain point, I think I have a track record and my editor trusts me. But I have also, I've spent most of my career living in Texas, although I'm from the East Coast, and I do think that there's some advantage to being outside the kind of major media markets. There's certainly plenty of disadvantages, but the advantages are I do think some things come on my radar first. They happen first in Texas, and for a while I was living in like rural Texas, and some things happen first there before they happen in New York City or whatever, even though people in New York don't always believe that. And so I think that kind of gave me a perspective on the country and parts of the country that maybe my editors living in cities didn't have. And so I think over time they kind of grew to trust that. If I was like, look, everybody's this essential oil thing, multi-level marketing, selling essential oils, like this is huge. It took them a little while to catch up, but that was happening in rural Texas before it was happening anywhere else.
You feel like you could get them to believe anything is happening in rural Texas?
Yeah, it's a mystical place.
How did you end up there?
Really just whim. I wish I had a beautiful grand story for you, but I was, ready to move on from the East Coast, wanted to live somewhere cheap, drove through rural West Texas, a little town called Marfa, big known for its art scene, and found it really compelling and strange, and was like, oh, I'll stay for a little while, and then was there for over a decade.
Where you are someplace more urban now, is that right?
I now am in Austin. So,
Like Marfa
capital
writ
city.
large.
Exactly.
So what was it that turned you on to the story of Frances Glessner Lee?
It's funny because that's like one of the very first pieces of journalism that I wrote was about Frances Glessner Lee. Right when I was still thinking of myself as a fiction writer, honestly, I was living in Baltimore at the time, and I heard that there were these strange, decades old dollhouses that were very meticulously crafted, but had all of the dolls in them were dead. And this is the kind of thing that like appeals to my sense of the macabre and my sense of the cute at the same time. And but they weren't available for public view. They were owned by the Maryland Medical Examiner's Office in Baltimore, and you had to have some sort of excuse to see them, a professional excuse. And so I was like, I had done a couple things for the local alternative weekly, the Baltimore City paper, which sadly no longer exists, and got an assignment from them to write about it. And that really, it was just an excuse to satisfy my own curiosity. I wanted to see them. And, gosh, that was got to be, 16 plus years ago now, and wrote a little thing about it. And just they remain fascinating to me. Who made them? They are just the craft behind them is so beautiful, and yet they're so creepy because the dolls, you're supposed to kind of be able to tell from the scene, was this person depicted, was it a suicide, an accident, or a murder? And there are little clues embedded in these little dollhouse scenes, and I just found it really compelling, and that in some ways like became the seed of the book that I would write many years later.
Well, and she's just a really interesting person. I mean, if you look at pictures of her, you would not imagine that she would be someone who was an expert in crime scenes. She kind of, has a look of, this is the 1930s and 40s, right? So she looks like a cross between Aunt Bee and Matlock.
Yeah, that's a very good description. So this Frances Glessner Lee, and she was an heiress. She had grown up, born in the 19th century, grew up as an heiress, didn't go to college because that was not respectable for a lady of her class. And yeah, when she started making these murder scenes, by that point she was like a real kind of self-trained expert in forensic science, which was a relatively new field at that point. She was in her mid 60s, and all of the headlines, she became kind of famous for it. And all the headlines were, like grandma knows about murder, like, grandma's a sleuth. I think kind of playing up that contrast, because you would look at her and would not think this is a lady who's like, spends her nights reading about blood splatter analysis.
Well, and yeah, I said Matlock, but I probably should have said Jessica Fletcher for Murder, She Wrote, right?
Yes, she kind of has Jessica Fletcher hair.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, and so what were crime scene investigations like before she and others who thought that science should be added to them? What were they like before that?
Well, her big critique, and she was involved in this kind of growing movement in the 30s and 40s, was that crime scene investigation needed to be professionalized. A lot of mysterious deaths in the United States were handled by coroners. I mean, a lot of them honestly still are in a lot of rural areas, and those people are elected. They don't have to have any kind of scientific experience. Even the police at the time, her criticism was that they would very often be going on instinct or hunch or assumption, which often included like, bias. And so they would see, a woman in a flop house drowned in a bathtub and think, okay, she's a drug addict, she overdosed, she drowned. This is one of the little dollhouses that she made. But actually, if you look at the scene sort of more closely, you can find out like, no, there's some elements here that wouldn't add up. So it was just trying to move away from coming into a scene with your biases and confirming your biases, and instead using the methods of science and emerging technologies to like really look objectively at the scene in front of you.
Well, and the really crazy thing is just how beautiful and beautifully crafted these models are.
They're really incredible, just as physical specimens. And she was a very controlling woman. I think she was like difficult to be close to, but as a craftsperson, she was remarkable. And she also worked with a carpenter. She had a full-time carpenter on this, but she would make like the little cigarettes, like little precise tiny cigarettes. There's in one scene, there's a coffee pot, and the coffee pot has a tiny coffee filter and tiny coffee grounds in it. She would take for a newspaper, she would like get a mimeograph of an actual newspaper and then shrink it down and then like fray the edges. She really wanted everything to look right. Of course, all the drawers open and close, the light switches flick on and off. I mean, just really, really meticulously done.
It also strikes me that for a woman who was like this wealthy heiress, she had a lot of sympathy for the people who were sort of a lower stature than her.
Yeah, I mean, I think she felt so. She kind of started out her work. She donated a lot of the money she inherited to Harvard, and the idea was like, oh, we're going to found something here that will do scientific investigation of crime scenes. But she found the people at Harvard to be like pretty snooty to her and condescending to her. You get the sense, like reading all the paperwork and the letters, like they were just sort of like, thank you for this money, now please go away, ma'am. And so increasingly over her life, she found herself gravitating more and more to the police officers who had, were overwhelmingly from a very different social class than her. But she found herself kind of more welcomed and embraced and appreciated by them than the folks at Harvard. So she sort of switched, you can see over the course of her life, switching from like medical examiners and medical students and that kind of that level of crime investigation to the really kind of the frontline troops of crime scene investigation, which is police officers.
If only Harvard had sent that now go away letter to Jeffrey Epstein.
Right, exactly.
Do you think, can you draw a line from Frances Glessner Lee and her interest to where we are in the people's interest in true crime today?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways her story is a sad story because she did end up feeling quite unappreciated. She ended up withdrawing all her money from Harvard. That department that she founded ended up kind of dissolving and going away. But I do kind of feel like she was maybe half century too early. You get to the 90s and I mean, it doesn't start with CSI, but I think CSI, this juggernaut TV show really exploded forensics into public knowledge. And now it's so popular. I haven't looked at the most up-to-date statistics, but at least when I was writing my book, it was the STEM field, I believe the only STEM field that had a majority of women in it. So the fact that she was a woman in this field, which was so kind of treated as like this taboo thing, then now she would find herself in great company. And also, I think the other side of it is that a lot of the problems that she pointed out unfortunately continue to persist, that crimes are not always investigated scientifically, and that now you sort of have a situation where there's often like the veneer of science, kind of fake science, I guess you could say, about a lot of things like bite mark analysis that sort of seem like they are scientific, but don't really have this rigorous academic history behind them and are used in some cases to wrongfully convict people. So she was right about this being interesting, and then she was also right about it needing a lot more care how it was deployed.
I kind of feel like there's some overlap in what you were just talking about between that and what you're doing with Bad Therapist.
Yeah, so Bad Therapist, my podcast where my dear friend who is a therapist and I kind of go back and look at the bad therapists of history and the present, to just sort of think about how therapy, how mental health has been kind of misused or commercialized or weaponized. Yeah, I would like to go back and find the mistakes of history and figure out where we went wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I'm part way through the Dr. Phil episode, and I'll probably go back and finish listening to it when we're
Oh my
done talking.
gosh. Phil, that's a really, I had a good time with that one because Dr. Phil was just a crucial part of my childhood, my after school experience. And so it was interesting to read about the history. Like, who was this guy?
He definitely could have been a twisted Muppet.
Yes, yes. Well, there is a Dr. Phil Muppet. We found out later after we said that. So your instincts are correct.
um, do you feel like so you also have these kind of long connections to the Adirondacks, right?
Yeah, I've been going to the Adirondack since, before I was forming memories. My father spent a ton of time here. My grandparents spent a ton of time here. So it's really like a very important family place. I think I climbed Blue Mountain, climbed is maybe generous. I was probably carried up Blue Mountain for the first time when I was maybe 5 or 6. And think I've I think I haven't missed a year since. I might have missed a year during COVID, but try to do it every year. Um, and yeah, it's very special place for me. And I love NCPR. I'm like, I can't believe I'm appearing on the same airways as Radio Bob. It's now I feel like I've truly made it.
We can connect you with some Radio Bob swag if that would be
My
something.
God, wait, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, I accept.
Send me your T-shirt size,
Okay,
or
fabulous.
just tell me. The landscape is obviously totally different, but do you see things that the Adirondacks have in common with West Texas?
For sure. I mean, I was a firefighter, volunteer firefighter when I was out in West Texas, and just so that's the first thing that comes to mind. Just the way that rural places where people are far apart, dealing with emergency services, how people kind of take care of each other, in situations where there isn't sort of like a huge kind of professionalized municipal infrastructure there, where it really just kind of has to be people looking out for each other and devoting their own hard earned hours, and expertise to helping each other out. And I just think that's so fascinating. And it's a lot of the country like is living like that. But just I remember hearing about how 911 and 911 dispatchers function out in the North Country, and reminded me a lot of what it's like out in West Texas.
So I feel like I have to share this story now. A
Mm.
couple of years ago, I managed to break my ankle on my garage stairs, and I live in Potsdam, so not a very big city, 8,000 people or whatever. And thankfully, I mean, my wife was out walking the dogs. I don't know where my kids were at that point, but I had my cell phone with me, and I called 911 because I wasn't going anywhere. And the rescue squad came along, and the guy driving the ambulance was the guy we bought our house from. So he knew
Yep.
exactly where I was.
Yep.
Um,
That's amazing.
and the crazy thing, even crazier than that, was he doesn't even live in Potsdam anymore. He lives in Worcester, Massachusetts,
Oh
and
my
comes up
gosh.
every other week to volunteer with the rescue squad, which I think says something about the nature of people caring for each other in a place like the North Country.
It's really remarkable. And then you just, you get worried about the generational transfer. Like, is that going to happen? Is that going to keep happening? The fact that these positions are volunteer based is kind of wild to imagine. So yeah, that's definitely one. Although we in West Texas, we do have paid EMS. Um, but yeah, I think there are all sorts of things just that you don't ever really realize until you live in a small town. Also, there's the complete other side of that is just like the way that gossip and social information is transferred among people is I don't know, you got to live it to really understand it. So I do love writing about, I don't purely write about crime anymore, but a crime in a small town is kind of one of my sweet spots, because I feel like I understand how those things work and how they impact a place in a way that I didn't when had only been living in cities.
Do you wrestle at all with what some people think of as like the exploitative nature of true crime reporting?
Oh, definitely. And it's something that I wrestle with quite a bit myself. I mean, honestly, I don't consume that much true crime myself anymore, because I've just spent too much time kind of thinking about it and analyzing it. And so I used to use it to kind of turn my brain off. You put on oxygen or something like that and have it playing in the background as you go to sleep. And now I'm just like too critical to be able to do that. But I think there's been a lot of smart and thoughtful analysis of true crime as the genre has gotten much bigger. There's also been a lot of people looking at it and sort of being like, now how do we do this in a way that feels like responsible, that is, generous to victims, that isn't just replaying old tropes about crime and law and order. So, I'm definitely not a person who says like toss the whole genre out. I think it can be a really useful way to think about power and vulnerability and who gets listened to and who is ignored. But I think there are a lot of bad actors in the space for sure.
Yeah. So how do you turn your brain off now?
I play like a lot of computer solitaire. That's my boring answer. I wish I had. I need to get. I'm in the market for a Nintendo Switch. I think I'm going to enter my gamer era. That's my aspiration.
Well, Rachel Monroe, great to get to know you a little bit. Thanks for making the time, and I hope you get a chance to hike Blue Mountain when you're up here.
Yes, I certainly will. It was a pleasure talking with you, and thanks again for all the good work you guys do.
Rachel Monroe is a writer for The New Yorker and co-host of the Bad Therapist podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And she's giving a lecture on the life and times of Francis Glessner Lee and Lee's contribution to forensic science at the Adirondack Lakes Center for the Arts in Blue Mountain Lake. All the details are at ncpr.org/northwards.
Mitch, I don't suppose that you've ever been investigated by the police for a murder.
I have not.
Not yet.
No, not as far as I know.
You're still a young man.
We were talking about television before, I think, right?
We were. Yeah, we usually talk about television.
Did you ever watch this would not have been on Nick at Night because it was not a sitcom, but the TV show Quincy M.E.?
No.
Okay, so Quincy, this was also a late 70s, early 80s series. Quincy M.E. Medical Examiner. Mm-hmm. It starred Jack Klugman.
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Jack Klugman is?
No.
So he in the original Odd Couple TV series.
Okay.
He was Oscar.
Okay. I'm with you.
And you would totally recognize him because you will have watched old game shows, mm-hmm. and he was frequently like one of the celebrity contestants on game shows, the way everybody was a celebrity contestant on game shows in those days. Anyway, he starred as this kind of cantankerous and yet lovable medical examiner who was supposed to be something of a sex symbol, which always, even as a young man, when I looked at that, I thought, this strains credulity.
Let me look. Jack Klugman.
Klugman. And you might want to Google Quincy while you're at it.
I can see. This does not scream sexy.
No, you wouldn't think of that as a.
I try to be objective. Maybe people were just attracted to his brain.
Might have been, and his acerbic wit.
Oh yeah, I see. By this photo, he was cantankerous for sure.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a medical examiner or a witty doctor on television who wasn't really grumpy to his core?
I think we should ask Noah Wiley that question.
Who?
Noah Wiley. He was on ER. He's now on The Pit.
Oh, I don't watch that show.
I don't either. But
oh, okay.
Wow, well, did I drop a current cultural reference on you that you didn't get?
Well, I think you have an advantage because you have children.
They don't watch The Pit,
but they know about young people stuff. Is The Pit a young people stuff?
Here comes a microphone noise.
Okay, I did try to watch one episode of The Pit,
Mhm.
and its first 2 minutes, there was a lot of like blood
Yeah,
and grossness, and I said, I'm not going to do this.
Which is funny for a guy who's totally into horror movies.
Listen, I love horror movies, but I can only
Medical
go so
drama is
far.
too intense for you.
Well, it's depicting something that's like realistic, and I can't really do that. My final note: my brother was in school to become a nurse, and he was assigned a lot of reading and videos in his online courses, watching how procedures were done. We're going to remove this person's lung today, and he was really excited about it. Very interested in it. Was thrilled about becoming a nurse. And so he was sharing with me a lot of these videos. And I was very polite about it at first, like, wow, that's really cool, man. And it got to the point where every time I would open a message from him, I would get like sick to my stomach because he was showing me something vile. And so I had to say eventually, like, hey, man, I love you so much. I'm really, really proud of you. This is an amazing journey for you. But
you just go back to sending me dirty jokes.
Exactly. You cannot send me any more videos because I'm going to have a panic attack if I have to see like one more eyeball extraction.
That's it's. I understand why you the way you explained this, but it is fascinating that this grosses you out and and the horror movie thing is totally,
Well, some horror movies do gross me out, but like someone getting their head ripped off by a saw trap, that's probably not going to happen. I can.
Ethan, why don't you gross some people out with the closing credits?
I'll put some spooky music under this. Northwards is an NCPR podcast.
Wait, let me get my theremin.
That's more of a didgeridoo.
Yeah, sorry.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. Bill Hanel is our director of digital services. Anna Williams-Bergen is our digital project specialist. And our theme music is by
the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh,
That's
New
right.
York.
You can find out more about this show, listen to other conversations, and importantly, make a financial contribution that benefits this program and every other program that NCPR produces when you visit ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.